All right, good morning, boys and girls. It is that time of the week, our coffee break, and I have mine ready to go. I first and foremost want to give a big shout out to our entire team for keeping things in order and rocking as usual while I was gallivanting on vacation. And I especially want to give a big thank you to my good friend Darwin. Darwin, say hello to everybody. For taking over the coffee breaks. Did a fantastic job. In fact, if you guys want to see more of him, please just vote below. I'm more than happy to turn over the reins. No issues there. All right, so today's topic is going to be an interesting one. There's probably not a lot of people that know exactly what this is, which is why we wanted to bring it to your attention. What is a UTM? What are UTM parameters, and why should I care, especially with regards to marketing? It is something that is important if it is that, like us, we want to have some sort of return on our investment, right? If we're spending money on advertising or even just any type of marketing, whether it's normal posts on our social media accounts, newsletters that get sent out, that kind of thing, we want to find, what's working, what's not working, how do we change, based on the information we get. Well, if you're not putting things in place to allow you to track this, it's very difficult for you to make those decisions, right? All right, so let's first talk about what is a UTM and what does it stand for. So the actual term is your Urchin Tracking Module. I actually had to look it up. Urchin was actually a web analytics software that was developed by Urchin Software Corporation, and it was basically built back then and designed to track the behavior of website visitors. Well, what we probably didn't know, and until I checked, I didn't know this either. This was really the early version of Google Analytics, because this company called Urchin On Demand was actually purchased back in 2005 by Google. And so this is really the forerunner to exactly what UTM stands for, or what UTM is used for. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about what exactly that means to me, because Urchin Tracking Module still doesn't tell me anything, right? So UTM parameters are a simple, straightforward, and a reliable way to track traffic, all right, your online traffic. And they're not affected by changes to like third-party cookies or Facebook Pixel. They work both with Facebook and with Google. Matter of fact, both platforms have their own way to build them, to create them. But if you're sending any traffic to any of your web properties or your digital assets from like social accounts, UTM codes are really critical to knowing what's going on and when. So here are three key benefits. First of all, they help you track the value of your social marketing programs and your campaigns and help you to measure ROI. They actually provide precise data about conversion and the traffic sources. So meaning, where are people coming from? So if we're sending people to our website, how are they getting there? From where? Right. So these will help us. The third is that they allow us to test individual posts head to head in a classic A/B testing style. Basically, that just means you have an ad campaign as an example, and then you want to see if a different image might work. You might have a secondary, everything else remains the same. And just so you know, a tip, when you make changes for an A/B testing, just change one variable. Don't change 6 things, because you won't know which one of those 6 items actually made a difference, good or bad otherwise. But it is also something important. Maybe that's another topic we need to discuss in the future. Now, one sort of caveat to all this, UTMs are not the end all be all, because there are some issues that arise from this, right? So you're basically creating parameters and you're sticking those on the end of your normal link, right? So let's say you create a blog post on your website and you want to drive traffic from your social media accounts, but you want to know which one. Is it coming from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever? You need to give the parameters so you can see where things are coming in from that take them to the blog post, right? Well, let's say I make a post on Facebook and somebody likes it and they copy, because most people just copy paste the URL, and then they end up posting it somewhere else, like on LinkedIn or Twitter. Well, because the parameters haven't changed, it looks like we actually got another click from Facebook, when in turn, it was actually on LinkedIn or somewhere else. Now, there is a way around that. You can strip them. You can have it where the parameters are stripped once they're used. But then the other problem is that then if somebody does copy paste it and they go to LinkedIn, for instance, then it just looks like somebody just found our website and came directly to the website. So that also skews the information a little bit. So again, it's not the end all be all, but it is really powerful stuff. So let me talk a little bit about how to build one, right? If you were to go to Google, and there are a lot of free tools online. Matter of fact, later on, we will put under the post here the links that we're using for some of this information. We actually are using a spreadsheet that actually creates the links for us because we have clients that we're helping them with their Google business profile posts. And by the way, if you aren't doing that, please, you should be. If you don't know how, let us know, because it is definitely something that is of huge value. We're seeing some great return for some of our clients by utilizing Google. Anyways, right. So if you go to Google, there are 5 areas that you need to fill in on the form. If you go to Facebook, there's 4 main ones, but you can always add additional parameters. The difference is that with Facebook, you will find this tool when you're doing like an ad campaign. So you're creating an ad campaign and then you want to build these parameters into the link. It'll help you with that. With Google, you can do it for any link and then use it wherever you're going to use it, right? So it is pretty powerful. And you want to use both, right? At least if you're not in Facebook and you're anywhere else, then you definitely want to use Google because it talks with Google Analytics and lets you know what's happening. So first and foremost is the campaign source, right? So the platform or the vendor where your traffic is originating, like Facebook or your email newsletter. Then there's also the campaign medium. You can use this to identify the medium, like, I don't know, cost per click. Is it social media? Is it an affiliate link? Did somebody use a QR code? It'd be great to know, did somebody scan a QR code or did they click on a link, right? So the medium is also a parameter. The campaign term, these are like where you're tracking certain keywords, right, that you want to use or you want to track what keywords are beneficial for the person finding you and finding that link. And you can use it in your display ad, the campaigns, to identify different aspects of your audience. Then you also have the campaign content. Again, if you're doing A/B testing ads, then this is a useful metrics that passes details about your ad over to Google Analytics. And you can also use it to differentiate links that point to the same URL. A great example of this would be in your newsletter, right? So imagine you have a newsletter with images and links and text where you're providing additional anchor text. You would like to know, what are people using the most? Are they seeing the image and clicking there? Or do they not even know that the image is a hot link that clicks somewhere and they're only using something else? Again, you can create different links even within a single newsletter, which would help you identify where are people actually going from the newsletter to your blog post, for instance. And then, of course, campaign name, that's just to identify the campaign itself, like your website or specific product promotion. And again, you'll find additional examples and screenshots here on the links that we're going to provide here in a second. So let me just tell you some of the best practices when you're creating these links. First of all, stay consistent. And I would urge everyone just to try to keep everything lowercase, simply because if you're trying to capitalize certain words so it's easier to read, great. But then you have to do that for every one of them, right? And sometimes it gets a little bit difficult to keep up with that. If everything's lowercase, then it's just one less stress you have to worry about. You also want to have clean URLs, right? As an example, the source and the medium parameters, there's a good chance you could actually have identical terms, right? You wouldn't want to do that. That would kind of confuse things. So you want to make sure that you're very specific in what you're using so that your URLs actually are relevant and helpful and not confusing. One of the suggestions made was to have it flow like a sentence, right? So it's sort of, if you follow those 5 areas, those 5 form fields that you have to fill in, it could read pretty much like a sentence, and it makes it a little bit easier for anyone on your team who gets to see this data. They can follow it. And again, if you have something that you are putting together, like a sort of an example, so that your team is using the same style all the time, that's very helpful to do. Of course, then when you add all these UTMs, if you haven't never seen one before, they can be very long. So one suggestion might be to then shorten it, right? You can use like Bitly or some of the other shorteners that are out there that make it then a lot less confusing looking. I think what happens there is if you have a really long URL and has all this stuff in there that people don't know what that means, it may look spammy, and then people may not click on it just because of the way it looks, right? And then one last best practice would be to track your tag links. Maybe use a spreadsheet for the team so that you can see what exactly is out live in the world, and how exactly would you you can see what's actually helping and what's actually working. All right, so one last area I wanted to talk about is, if I can find it, I guess I lost what I was gonna, lost my train of thought here. Okay, so I would just say some ideas of where to use these, like right now, where you can use your starting right away, is on your social media. Every one of us should be, and if you're not, sorry, you should be definitely posting consistently on your social media platforms. And this is a great place to start, right? So if you're trying to drive traffic to, let's say, a blog post or your website or a new product launch or whatever, or a lead magnet, you definitely want to make sure that you're adding the parameters to these links that you're putting on your Twitter feed, or you're putting in Facebook or in LinkedIn, so you can kind of get an idea of where you're getting traffic from, what's actually working. So you can analyze this data and see what referral traffic is working. Let's see here. I'm trying to think if there's any other. There's some specific things like parameter strings you can use on Twitter with different medium values. I'm not going to go into too much of the technical detail. I don't think it's as relevant, not for this conversation. Obviously, test links. Make sure that when you create them, you test them. You don't want to put something out there and it breaks the link and then nothing works, right? So it doesn't, not only are you not getting data, but people click and it's not going anywhere, well, then you've just lost the potential of a sale. Like I'd mentioned earlier, a great example of using multiple UTM links is in your newsletter, just to kind of get an idea of where people are stopping. Are people just clicking the first couple of areas and they're not getting lower? Maybe you don't need such a long newsletter. Maybe you need more images because people seem to only click on the images. So this good data for you to continually tweak so you can maximize your return on whatever it is you're trying to do with your newsletter. Let's see here. Pinterest does it too. When you have different boards, you can actually use different UTM parameters for the different boards. So they can find your account, but you might find that one board is really outperforming another board just simply because you're using parameters. If you don't know that, you're just using a normal link, it's just coming from Pinterest. So that's not necessarily helpful, especially if you've got multiple boards with your, multiple topics that you're, pushing your sales from. You could put it on your signatures at the bottom of your emails. That's also a great way to track if people are actually seeing it, especially if you're someone that likes to make changes to the email signature based on time of year or the holiday or whatever. It's very helpful. You might have an image, you might have just data about yourself. It's great to see what people are actually reading and actually clicking to see if it works, right? So that is definitely a way to do it. And of course, if you're ever doing any type of additional advertising, like, banners, right? If you're putting banners on websites, you're paying to be there, you might as well find out which banners are working, which graphic did, get the most clicks. So you want to continue to have that style because it's working. Again, A/B testing is really powerful and very helpful. I know it's not today's topic, but it's definitely something worth looking into more. If you need any help with that, of course, please let us know. Yeah, I think that's all I have for today. If there are any questions, let me see if I have anybody live today asking questions. And I clicked on the wrong thing. No, it doesn't look like it. So yeah, that's it for today's coffee break. If you have any questions, let us know. We will drop the 2 links that I was using below. And yeah, great seeing you again. And we'll see